Hey,
Hi.
welcome. Voices Unchained here. We're at Golden Rule Reentry, and my lovely guest here, Brandi, is coming on to have a little chat. Let me just straighten up the camera a bit, but this is, there we go. So, yeah, one of the themes that we've been talking about recently um, is this whole thing about social banishment, right? It's kind of what happens to folks in prison, right? And it's an old tribal tradition if you look back at from time immemorial, from time in the beginning, as long as humans gathered in tribes, it was the one form of punishment that was used in many, many situations when somebody did something wrong, when somebody committed a crime, when somebody broke a tribal rule, and so the punishment was often that, was often social banishment. People were kicked out of
Yeah.
groups, kicked out of families, cast out. And the impact that that has on the individual is profound. In some cases, it's worse than death.
Yeah.
Because if you're, as human creatures, we're all limically and emotionally bonded to each other, right? And so when that gets cut, it's a hard thing to sort of process and deal with. So that's sort of the theme of what we were chatting about earlier on. And I'm wondering what your experience of that was or is, and how you came through it, and anything you'd like to share around that.
Yeah, so I actually have a lot to say about that, but I'll try to keep it short.
That's all right.
Nowadays I help folks find jobs when they get out, and it's like hitting a brick wall with a lot of people, with so many people, because society judges us already for the lifestyle that we're in, and then judges us more harshly for the crime that we committed. And then we get out and we have to live off of the system. And then society judges us for being on food stamps and welfare with their tax money, but they don't allow us to get a better job. And then once we do, and we get a tiny raise, we get all of our benefits taken away, but we still don't make enough to survive. And then we're still judged because we're judged for being judged, basically, because we're kept at that level,
Yeah.
but we're expected to be at this level, but they don't make it possible.
Yeah.
So, my experience was, and what I try to do for other people now is just teach people that confidence, right? Like shoot for the moon, and maybe you'll end up in the stars. Like it doesn't matter how harshly people are judging you. I know that it's already like breaking your self-esteem and breaking your image, but as long as you can hold your head up high and just know that you're doing the best that you can do every single day,
Yeah.
then you have the courage to get up the next day and do it. But I've seen people be, beaten down so much by the cruelty of other people and the judgment that they just don't have any confidence left. They don't
Yeah.
have the confidence to go into a job interview and look people in the eye and say, "Yeah, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Let me show you that I can do better." And people just don't have that confidence nowadays because
Yeah.
of so much like judgment and being like biased and separated from society because of the things that we've done. In reality, if we're already traumatized when we're doing what we're doing out there in the streets or whatever. We already have our own trauma that we're dealing with, and then how we get judged so harshly by it.
Yeah. Yeah. And in your own personal case, like, what was the impact? How like, did you have that experience at all, where you somebody really important in your tribe, in your community, just kind of cast you out? Or, I mean, I guess the modern version of that now is the judge and the jury. You go in front of them, and the judge becomes the final say on what your punishment is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious what your own personal experience of that
Yeah.
was.
So even in my family, right, most of my family they were very supportive. But there's always those couple few that think they're so much better, and
Yeah.
they have their nose up, and that was a really hard thing. There's very few people now that are finally starting to come around and be like, "Hey, you're actually going to do good this time," and they're saying that in a positive way, but really it still feels like an insult,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're finally opening that door a little bit. But just having, I think I've mentioned before, I've been in prison 5 times, and each time when I'd come out and I'd try to get a job and I'd be denied, or I'd try to do something and I'd get shot down, each one of those are like a little insult to your self-esteem.
Yeah.
And we're already pretty broken when we come home, and we're already just getting out of the prison system, and it's really sad the way that things end up like that, and the
Yeah.
barriers that we constantly run into. I still am having doors shut in my face. I try to go into the prison and talk about my story and the things I'm doing and do a job fair, and I got denied just last month.
Mm.
But I use that in my story, and I tell people, that doesn't mean I'm not going to try again next year and the year after and the
Yeah.
year after. But I'm in a better place now, emotionally and spiritually and mentally, to where I have the confidence to do that. But a lot of people, when they first come home, they don't have that.
Yeah.
So we here at Golden Rule, we try to be those people that believe in them until they can believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And we're always going to have those no's and those doors in our face and those barriers. It takes a really strong person to start all the way over and like jump through all the hoops and over
Right.
all the barriers. And
Yeah.
like I just have mad respect for anybody who can start their life over and and actually succeed, because so many people, they get out there and it's a big world out there,
It's big.
especially when you've been incarcerated and you're
Yeah.
institutionalized mentally or emotionally. You don't even know how to work a phone. In order to search for a job on Google, you don't know how to build a resume. You just get overwhelmed by like the simple things. And so, I try to be a big enforcer of like, just come in and we'll walk with you through that.
We'll walk with you through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
kind of supporting somebody,
Meeting people where we're at instead of where we want them to be.
meeting people where they're at. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so these no's that happen like that those can be re-traumatizing, right? Because you get a few of those, and all of a sudden, pretty soon you're back where you started. You know.
Yeah, and it is, I have people come in here all the time, and I meet with them before they even get out of prison. I have the Zoom videos with them, and they're just so afraid they accept a rejection before they even try it. And so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they are creating their own barrier in that sense, because in their
Yeah.
mind, they already think they're going to be judged so harshly,
Right.
because we are our own worst critic. Everybody is, right?
Right.
And so if somebody says, "Oh, you might be good at this job," oh, they'll never hire me, so they don't even try.
Right.
And so it becomes just this like cycle of failure. And that's all society sees when they look at us, is more failure. But really, it's because inside we're afraid of being rejected.
Inside, you're afraid of being rejected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say that's a real common theme with folks coming out of prison?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You see it a
think
lot here.
so. Right now, I think I have probably 52 people on my caseload that are looking for jobs or that I've gotten jobs, and maybe 8% of them actually had the confidence when they got out. Most
Eight
people,
percent. Yeah.
yeah,
It's that
most people
small.
don't,
Yeah.
and I say there's 2 weeks of time period when they come home. So the first week they're all happy to be out, and they're energized and they want to see their family and they're happy. The second week is when those discouragements start happening,
Right.
and they start being rejected for things, and they start being frustrated that they don't know how to use their technology and their phone, and like they start trying to apply for jobs, and some people, they get turned down once or twice and they give up and they say, "Oh, I can't do this,"
Yeah.
because going back to what they know is their comfort zone, and it's easier for them.
Yeah. 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 And what's the solution, do you think, just on both on the end of the person doing the banishing, and then on the person who is actually receiving that rejection? Like, what's the solution in your opinion, um, on both sides, or what would you say to folks in the community
Um,
who are in that space? Because it from what I can see, it depends on the individual, but it also like depends on the crime as well. Because some crimes are pretty severe and hard, and it's just hard to not want to push that person away and like have them spend some time thinking about what they did. But
That is a very hard one, and I deal with that all the time. Different people have different barriers, as I call them, different charges, and some of them are automatically, excluded from certain jobs because of their charges. And so I try to do the background work beforehand, and I'm not going to send somebody with certain charges to go work where there's going to be children. I'm not going
yeah,
to set them up for that failure.
right,
And I'm trying to build relationships with different employers to kind of have that connection with them before I send people there. I try to like find places that I know are felon friendly
yeah.
before I send them there. And I would
So in
say the
that you
biggest,
become an advocate sort of
yeah,
for that person.
and
So
I think the biggest message that I would want like employers to know is just being educated. It's not everybody out there just because we have a past. That doesn't mean we don't have a future. And I try to coach people into saying, handling it when they're asked about their charges or their crimes, and say, yes, I know that we have made a mistake, but I'm also willing to work harder than the average person to earn my way back into society than the person who takes it for granted is going and may use your company until they find a better job.
right,
And if you give people that one chance, you're taking 50-50 with everybody in the world. with these people, maybe you're taking a little bit higher of a risk,
Yeah.
but you're also giving that person a little bit of hope. And if you give somebody who's never had a job an opportunity to be somebody and be a parent to their children and be, somebody that they want to be,
Yeah.
they're going to be very loyal to you most times.
That's right. Yeah, it might be work out a lot better for you in the long run as an employer because of that loyalty that you'll get as a result. Because giving people a chance who've never had one, they respect that.
Yeah, and not only that, like we don't want these people to go out and recommit a crime, but we're not giving them the opportunity to get a job to live a better life so they don't be forced to go out and commit another crime, you know? So it's this whole cycle, and I just wish that people would be more educated in the whole scenario before they're so quick to just turn people away.
Before they're so quick to turn people away, yeah. And then for the person receiving the banishment, the person that happens to, what would you say to that person at this point? I mean, you probably see them here every day, but what's your advice, or what would you say?
Not to put your self worth into somebody else's opinion of you.
Yeah, not to put your self worth into somebody else's opinion of you. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Like we determine who we want to be, and like I don't care if that person doesn't like me or if that person doesn't like me. I don't live to please them. You know what I mean? I'm living to try to make a better me than I was yesterday. Beautiful. And that's what I try to tell people too.
That's nice. I love it.
Thank
It's just
you.
simple. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big topic, and we'll definitely start diving into it more over time. But as all the topics are that we bring up in these interviews, because it's so layered and so rich, and so many components are present here, and so many people in the community are affected, and so many, it's a huge issue. So I appreciate you taking this little time out of your workday to come and to share those wise thoughts and share about what the offerings you're doing here at Golden Rule is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love to get my opinion out there, and hopefully it helps people more than hinders them. And it's just that's what it's about. It's using what I have to help other people, and it's allowing me to heal as a person from my past, being able to help others walk through their journey.
Beautiful.
So, I love it.
Thank you. And we're at Golden Rule. This is going to be the new media center here pretty soon, so we'll have a little more of a fancy setup here pretty soon. But this is the beginning phase of it, and so thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.